Network connectivity issues, part 1. We're going to look at the situation where you're attempting to connect to the internet and it's you're getting the message saying connected, no internet, or something like secured, no internet, or no internet, secured. Now what this basically means is that you are connected to your internal network and you are connected to the modem router itself. However, there seems to be an issue with actually accessing the wide area network or the internet via your internet service provider. So cases where you might see this is when you're trying to connect via the bottom right of your toolbar in Windows. You're trying to connect either to your wireless internet or your wired Ethernet connection, and you're seeing the message connected but no internet or something similar to that. So the main determining factor in this type of issue is if you've got the internet light on your router or if it's not on. Now, I guess we're kind of determined whether this is an issue that the internet service provider needs to fix on their end or if it's something that can be handled internally. So the first thing you should do is go to your modem router, wherever that is in your home, and check if the internet light is flashing. So I've got just an example router here. Now your router may be a little different, but nonetheless, there should be a light here for internet. It might also be called WAN, W-A-N, and that should be on or should be flashing. If that internet light or that WAN light is not on, the first thing I'd recommend doing, which normally fixes about 90% of problems, is going up to your router, turn it around. At the back, you will see a big power button. We're going to power cycle that. So press the power button, turn it off, wait for about 30 seconds, and then turn it back on. Now, when you turn it back on, it can take a minute or two for everything to kind of configure, and you will see lights kind of come on gradually. If power cycling was the solution, you'll then see the internet light come on or the WAN light come on. You can then go back to your device and try and connect to the internet. So in the situation that the internet or WAN light is indeed on your router, however, you still can't access the internet, the first solution is try and power cycle the router and power cycle your device. So similar to the step before, on your router, on the back, press the power button, turn that off, wait for 30 seconds, and then turn that back on. Once the internet light does come back on, then just power cycle the device that's trying to connect the internet. So restart that device, whether it be a computer, a phone, or a tablet, or whatever else it might be, and then try and connect to the internet. The second solution to this problem, if the first didn't work, is essentially checking that you are being allocated an IP address by your router or your modem. So you can do that by pressing the start button, typing CMD on a Windows computer, type ipconfig/all, and this will give us some important information. What you'd want to be looking for is in the IPv4 address. If your IPv4 address is blank, or you don't have an IP address allocated, that indicates that there may be an issue with the DHCP server inside the router, and we can troubleshoot that further. If you're not actually allocated an IP address, as in this example we are, you may actually not be able to get into the router interface, which is that 192.168.1.1 or whatever it is on yours, but that's more likely the case. In this example, it's 10.0.2.2. That would be our login for this case. That may happen if you haven't been allocated an IP address. So what we need to do in order to access the router configuration screen in this case is we need to give ourselves an IP address. manually first. Then we can go in and we can check the DHCP server and actually reset it or restart it, and then see how we go. Okay, in order to allocate ourselves a manual IP address so that we can actually access the router configuration interface, the first thing we'll do is we'll press the Windows key or the Windows button or the Start button if you're back from the Windows 98 days, and we're going to type, depending on if you're connected to a wireless network or a wired network, we're either going to type Ethernet settings if you're wired, or we're going to type Wi-Fi settings if you're connected via a wireless network. So in this case, just for examples purposes, the settings will be the same, but we're going to Ethernet settings. You scroll down and you'll then see some IP information. So your IP assignment so far is set to automatic or DHCP. But since in this case we're guessing that perhaps the DHCP server is not working correctly, what we're going to do is just change that to manual temporarily so that we can access the gateway or the configuration screen of the router. So we will click Edit, change it from automatic to manual, IPv4 on. We're going to choose our own IP address here. So very likely in your case, if you're troubleshooting a home network, routers and modems normally ship out with a subnet of 192.168.1 point something. So that's very likely your going to be your IP address. You can choose anything from that last digit. So you could do 0.50, for example. Now, how do you know what that is and what your subnet mask is? If you go into your command prompt, go to ipconfig, you can see here your subnet mask, 255.255.255. Now, in this case, we're using 10.0.2.15. So if this was mine, I do 10.02. 10.0.2 point whatever I want to allocate myself, maybe 10, okay, or it could be 17. That last digit doesn't really matter to us, right? We just got to make sure that it's not going to be the same IP address as a device that's already in the house. So I'm putting this as, I'm going to be entering these details with the more common subnet for home networks. So 192.168.1, let's give yourself 15 for this example. And the subnet mask will be 255.255.255.0, which we can see here. And the gateway is going to be the IP address of the router or the IP address of the modem. So in my case, the default gateway is 10.0.2.2, but if you're troubleshooting a home network and you're on this video, yours is more likely to be 192.168.1.1. Could also be 192.168.0.1. They're the two most common gateway addresses. Again, to check that, you just type in ipconfig and you'll be given the gateway address right there. Now, for the preferred DNS, just enter the same in this example as your gateway, 192.168.1.1. Okay. Then we're going to click Save. Now, as you'll see, we've given ourselves an IP address of 192.168.1.15. And if we were to type ipconfig into our terminal, we can now see the IPv4 address is 192.168.1.15. We should be able to now access the router interface at 192.168.1.1, the gateway address. Once you've reached the router interface, you'll log in with your router password. and we'll jump straight to, in this case, we're using a TP-Link AX1500 Wi-Fi 6 router, but we want to go into the advanced settings, so we're anywhere where we can see all of the available settings, and we want to go to DHCP server. That's what we're looking for. Now you want to check that it's enabled. If it is not enabled, you want to make sure that it is enabled. If it already does say enable, you can disable and save and then re-enable it again. And that should restart the DHCP server. Might also have a setting here saying restart server where you can do that as well. Once you've restarted the DHCP server, you can go ahead and change the setting back to DHCP from a manual IP address. So again, press the start menu, Ethernet settings or Wi-Fi settings depending on your connection. Looking for IP assignment, which we set to manual in the previous step. We'll click edit. We'll simply change it from manual back to automatic DHCP, and what that means is that we'll automatically be provided an IP address by the router each time we connect. Click save. If this solution worked, you should then be able to connect to the internet either by visiting a web page such as google.com, or alternatively you can use the command terminal and type ping www.google.com. If you receive responses like this, replies, that means you're connected to the internet. If none of those solutions that we went through worked at all, and everybody in the home or every device in the home is having trouble connecting, and it's not just your device, and the WAN or internet light is on, so your internet service provider has told you, look, the internet's working, we've got no issues from our end, the final thing that you can do is going to the back of the modem. You will see there's a power button, but there'll also be a really tiny hole. It's here on this example, and you can get like a paper clip and just press and hold that, and what will happen is that will do a factory reset of your router, and it'll be as if it just came straight out of the shop, and you can configure that again for the first time.